and JENEE BROUSSARD is the executive director. They're not sisters, they're not related, they just simply work together. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
And it's good to have you because I love Healing House. It's a program that has been near and dear to my heart for many years. But for people who don't know what is Healing House? What do you do there?
Well, Healing House provides grief support groups for children who have lost either a parent or a sibling. And we serve the entire Acadiana community, which consists of 8 parishes.
Okay, so why do we need to have something like Healing House for children who have experienced a loss? I mean, why can't they just get on with their lives?
Typically what we see happen is that when children lose a loved one, the adults around them feel that they'll get over it or that they don't really understand what's going on. And so children are often left to grieve on their own and to figure things out by themselves. So what Healing House does is we try to provide these children with a safe place where they can come and talk about their loss, talk about the feelings and the thoughts that they've been having since their loved one's death.
Do you think a lot of times adults just don't know how to talk to children about death, and so it's really, I think, maybe our own fears or inadequacies or discomforts that prevent us from reaching out and doing the work that we need to do with kids?
Right. Plus, a lot of the times in a situation, the parent themselves have either lost a spouse or a child. So the adult themselves are grieving as well, and thus, like JENEE had said, it leaves the child then completely alone and commonly referred to as the forgotten griever.
So is that kind of what we knew was going on back when we started Healing House, which was then called the Grief Center, and we had identified a need or a gap in this community, and the gap was grieving children. You know, there was a lot of work, if I remember at the time, being done on grief, you know, kind of bringing grief out of the closet. We had hospice coming up, we had the widowed persons group starting, and people looked around and said, what about kids? So I guess the question is still, what about kids, huh?
And just in Lafayette alone, there are over 20 adult grief support groups.
So it has really taken off.
There's over 20. So for children, Healing House is the only grief support group specifically for children within a 200-mile radius.
Really?
So that's not even taking into account the adult support groups that are in Opelousas, New Iberia, the RYANE area. So there are a lot of resources for adults, but very few when it comes to children.
What do we need to know about children in grief?
Well, I think the most important thing is for us as adults to realize that children do grieve. They show their grief very differently than we do as adults, but the grief is still there. Often children don't have the vocabulary to express that grief, to let us know, I'm feeling anxious about something happening to my surviving caregiver, or you know, it really makes me nervous when you leave and go to work because I worry that something's going to happen to you as well. So children don't have that vocabulary to express their thoughts and their feelings in the way that we would want them to. So they express themselves through play, through their interactions with other children, and so it's important for us to sort of hone in and focus on, well, how is the child really doing? What sort of common themes are coming out in their play? How have they reacted since their loved one's death? It can really give us some insight into how that child is dealing with the loss.
Okay. Did you want to add to that?
Well, I think that that's an important aspect of Healing House, is that we group the children according to their age and also the person that they lost. So they have that peer-to-peer interaction, and whereas in school and everyday life, you're kind of an outsider because you lost a parent or a sibling, whereas other kids are, you know, that's not normal. But for them at the Healing House, this is completely normal. And they're able to see that, oh, another child is going through this as well and feels that same way. And it's okay to feel that way.
So that whole peer relationship, again, is really helpful, you say.
Right.
Okay. Now, what age groups do you serve at the Healing House?
We start at 4 and go through 17.
Okay, and why 4?
Well, I think it's mainly because that's when it's commonly thought of that children don't grieve when they're that young, or it's not something that they can grieve. It's proven in studies that even children as young as you go through separation anxiety, when you have a 1.5-year-old all of a sudden crying, going to daycare, these kids have a sense of grief already then, and at 4 is the age when they can comprehend the missing of someone that was prevalent in their life.
Okay. So death is really not a concept for anyone under 4 is what we're thinking, the permanency of it.
Right, the permanency of it. And at 4 years old, they're better able to express themselves verbally.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so there are, with children as young as 4, the way that we go about helping to explain death to them is that we may use activities where we talk about what is the difference between something being alive and something being dead. We might use bugs, we might use leaves that have fallen from a tree. So going about it very softly to help these children understand exactly what it means for something to die. At 4, it's a very crucial age for us to be able to start these conversations with children.
So if a child has lost a significant person in their life and they have not come to the healing house, say it's been a year, is it too late for them to come? I mean, my question really is do they need to come shortly after the loss, or can they come at any time that they're experiencing trouble? When's the right time to enter into your program?
The right time to enter is when it feels right for the family.
Okay.
Some families, it's been 3 or 4 years since their loved one has died. Other families, it's been possibly a week or 2 since their loved one has died. In some instances, we've had families where their loved one died, the child didn't show any behaviors or anything that was concerning to the parents until 3 or 4 years later. As the child grew up and developed more, that some of these abnormal behaviors and concerns started to show themselves. So it doesn't matter how long it's been since their loved one died, it's whenever the family feels ready to partake in a support group environment.
Okay, and that's really what this is, and this is a support group more than anything else. It's not individual one-on-one therapy. It is supportive work within a group environment. Am I right about that?
Right.
So what do you do over there?
Despite what people may think, Healing House is actually a pretty fun place
It's
to
a
be.
very fun place to be.
I know some people may think that Healing House, the kids just sit around and cry and tell sad stories, but while we do talk about sad things and the children do share some pretty tough memories, it's a pretty fun place to be. We have different rooms set up throughout the house where the kids can go and sort of get whatever they need out of that group night. We have an art room that the kids can work in where they can create something that possibly memorializes their person, drawing a picture for their surviving parent or caregiver. We also have a hurricane room where kids can express some of those bigger emotions, more explosive emotions, but in a safe way. They can work on the punching bag, they can throw Play-Doh against the wall. So, because we know that generally in society, people don't like the way anger looks. They don't like to see someone expressing anger. And so the hurricane room...
appropriately named.
Exactly. The kids like to call it the tornado room as well. So that name's kind of stuck.
It's swirling energies no matter how you cut it.
Right.
And that's how it feels, isn't it? To have all that kind of uncontrolled rage, anger, hurt. You know, you do have to get it out. It's a terrible burden to carry that.
Right. And it's okay there, and it's safe.
Right.
So it's just one of those things that we provide that safe place for them to, it's okay to be that way. It's okay to punch on a punching bag. It's not okay to act like that in a public place or at school. So that's why that room is so important. Just as any other room, like JENEE had said, the art room, a lot of our creative kids come in there and they might just want to work on an art project for the day because that's what they like to do. But then there's also that side of the memorializing the person that they've lost.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So it's very important that all of these rooms are very safe, and all of them provide that outlet for the children to get what they need from it.
And this is very much volunteer driven, isn't
Right.
it? We're going to talk about volunteers in just a minute. But the volunteers really allow the children to set the tone and set the pace for themselves. Am I right about that?
Right. The volunteers are more of a companion with the children as opposed to someone who's there to supervise or to direct them. The kids really set the tone as to what activities they want to do. They also set boundaries as to how much they're willing to share.
Okay, and they can do that. It's okay. And I think what this is really communicating is that it's really respectful of the individual, whether it's an adult or a child. Children deserve as much respect as adults do. and the children, given the proper environment, can grieve quite safely and quite well. Is that a message that we would like to get out? And they need to?
Definitely, definitely. We want the children that come to Healing House to feel that losing a loved one and grieving shouldn't be something that we should be ashamed of. Right. We all lose loved ones, and it's important for us to be able to express it. What happens with a lot of our children that come to Healing House is that they don't express those emotions to the family members around them.
Are they the ones being strong for the other family members sometimes?
Right.
These are, yeah.
Like Ryan said earlier, you know, the caregivers that are now caring for these children are also dealing with their own grief. And so what we find often happens is that the children don't open up to their caregivers because they don't want to make their caregivers sad. So coming to Healing House and expressing these thoughts and emotions to a complete stranger, surprising as it may be for some children, is very beneficial. They'll open up to a stranger more than they will their own family members.
Because it's safer.
Right.
So let me ask you, how does a child get referred to Healing House? I mean, do they just pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to come?
Right. Basically, anyone can call. The caregiver needs to call us and set up a meeting with one of our group directors, and they come and meet with them, and then we kind of see where we're at as far as, like right now we serve 120 kids. We have a small waiting list, but it just kind of throughout the year, depending upon children, if they feel that they are okay, that they would like to leave for a while, they can leave, and so it kind of depends on, they can come back, yeah. So it just kind of depends on our waiting list situation, but anyone can call and get information, or you can visit our website, but the best way to get in is to just call us and set up that appointment.
Okay. And then once somebody's in, they come weekly, every other week? I mean, what is the program schedule looking like?
The families come once every other week. So
the whole family?
The whole family.
Do the caregivers drop the child off, or do they stay?
The caregivers have to stay on the premises while the children are in their support group. We also have a caregiver support group.
I was going to ask, because I know that
time.
Initially caregivers really weren't receiving services through Healing House, but they are now.
They are.
Because you got to take care of them to take care of the little ones, I think.
Exactly, yeah. And this is a new journey that the entire family is on, and so if we're able to give those caregivers some insight and help as to, okay, this is how you should respond in this situation when your child says this, or even especially now during the holiday season, tips on how to get through those tough days, especially our families where this is going to be their first holiday without their loved one. And
so they're there every other week, and how long are the sessions?
For an hour and 15 minutes.
Which is not too long, not too long. And what kind of results are you getting? How long has Healing House been open now?
We've been open about 16 years now.
And so do you have any idea how your results are?
Anecdotal
or research?
Well, more anecdotal. For us, we get lots of really positive feedback from the families saying, before my child was very closed off and reserved and didn't really want to talk about their person that died. And now the topic of conversation of their person just flows naturally in the family. Or we have one family where the child started coming to Healing House because he was having anxiety attacks at school after his father passed away. And they've been coming for a few years, and Mom said after about 6 months, his anxiety started to subside. So, and some families come and maybe the support group environment isn't for them, and they feel that they would rather more one-on-one counseling, which, we're happy to refer families and help them find those kind of services.
Okay, so it's just whatever a family needs.
Right. They're kind of, they kind of show us their marks of, success. I think one of the biggest things, especially in my position, is when I see someone come back. They've been to the Healing House, and now they want to come back and volunteer. That to me just shows, yes, it does, because they know what it did for them, and now they want to give back and help more of the grieving children of Acadiana.
And Ryan, that was a perfect segue, because I was going to ask about the volunteer program. As I said earlier, it is very much volunteer driven. And there's a volunteer training coming up in January?
Yes, January 5th and 6th. And
well, you're going to hit the new year right.
That's right. We're gonna charge forward with the new year. We offer these. We try to offer them about 4 times a year, and it is necessary to attend both days of the training that we offer for you to become a volunteer. We just go through a lot of understanding, maybe what the children's grief looks like, and then we also just prepare you for some of the things you might see or do during that group session. You also have to be 21 years of age.
Okay.
So those are our requirements.
There
will be a background check as well. So.
But you don't have to have any degrees or any credentials or anything like that.
And the time commitment as a Healing House volunteer is once you become a volunteer, you're assigned to one of the support groups. So you would come every other week, and you would be with the same group of children, the same volunteers each time you came. So,
I would imagine people get pretty attached, huh? Because it's a real vulnerable time for families, and then that volunteer is like, that's going to be a pretty big deal.
Yes, and that's why we ask our volunteers to commit to at least 1 year.
Okay.
As a volunteer, because the children do get attached to the volunteers, and so if our volunteers come a few times and then disappear, sometimes it's one more loss that child's had to experience.
And we don't want that.
No.
So you can't give,
we like consistency.
Yeah, if you can't give this year, wait till next.
Right.
So who volunteers there? I mean, what kind of people do you find are stepping up to the plate?
Oh goodness, we have a wide variety of volunteers. We have college students that come and volunteer. We have retired teachers. We have father and daughter duos that'll come and volunteer on the same night. We have, like Ryan said, past Healing House families who are now, they feel that they're in a good place to come back and volunteer and give back to the other children.
That's huge.
So as long as you're 21 or older and can commit to 2 nights a month with a support group, we would love to have you.
So each support group then is facilitated by a volunteer.
Right. We have between 5 and 6 volunteers in each group.
Now, does a person have to, like if a person, say, does better with teenagers or does better with little 4 and 5-year-olds, do they get to pick what group they want to?
During the training, we always ask if there's something, because we want the volunteers to be comfortable as well. And we see that a lot in our past families who attended Healing House. They want to go right back where they were and help with those kids. So it's one of those things where we give them a sheet of paper and they can choose, who they feel they would work best with. And we try to pair them up accordingly.
Okay. So you have about how many volunteers now?
We have about 60 to 65 volunteers.
So you have a good volunteer pool.
Right.
And
we still need lots more.
Well, that's not enough.
Yeah, we have 9 different support groups that meet, and so ideally we would like to have at least 6, possibly 8 volunteers in each group. So
well, how many children do you have in each group?
We have between 12 and 14 children.
So you do almost a one-on-1, one-on-2 kind of ratio, huh?
We really want to make sure that for one, the kids are kept really safe, and if they break into those separate rooms, that there's someone there to make sure that things are going well. And then also, if some children want to go and have a one-on-one conversation with a volunteer, that we have enough people available to meet all of the different needs of the children.
And I'm thinking from a volunteer perspective, it would feel better to have support as well, because it's, I think for volunteers a lot of times it's like, what if something comes up that I can't handle in this group? I want to have somebody who's got my back.
Well, we have group directors on staff as well each group night. So the volunteers, if there ever is a situation that they don't feel comfortable in, they can come directly to the director, and they're there to kind of facilitate the group as a whole. So
you have 9 groups going on. So
correct.
That's every week?
Every other week.
Every other week. So how big is your house? I mean, I've seen it.
It's not that big, but we only have one support group that meets at a time.
Okay.
So
everybody's scheduled on a different day.
There's only one group that meets at that time. So it's those 12 to 14 kids along with the volunteers, and then of course the adult care, the adult support group that meets at the same time.
Okay, so it's pretty focused then on the group that's there at that time.
Right.
Now, for the volunteers, you said they go through 2 days of training. That's 2 full days of training. Is that right?
Right.
And what kind of stuff they're going to learn? You said a little bit, but you spoke in general terms. But specifically, what would a volunteer expect to get out of this training?
We teach the volunteers a lot about using the skill of reflection,
Okay.
as well as the skills of awareness, being aware of some feelings that may come up for ourselves.
That's what I'm
when we're
thinking.
listening
We're not
to
the
these
Lone Ranger.
children, right? When we're listening to these children share their stories, we talk a lot about communication, asking open-ended questions, ways to really help facilitate the kids in talking about their thoughts and their emotions. We also do some role playing so that the volunteers really get a good taste of, how is it going to be for me when I'm in the hurricane room and a child asks if I can bury them? Okay, how are you going to respond to that? Is it going to make you uncomfortable? So we use the training.
So what's your
as,
answer?
Well, it depending on the
depends on-
volunteer.
Yeah.
Depending on the volunteer, some say, I don't think I could ever do that. And others say, okay, where do you want me to lay? Or, what do you want to use to bury me with? And
Oh, the child wants to bury the volunteer.
Right.
or vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can do either way.
So we use that volunteer, the training time, to sort of walk them through different scenarios. So that way they can work out some of these feelings and hesitations that they might have before they get into an actual group.
And the reason I ask that is because I think that these training events can really help the participants as well as the people that they're later going to serve.
Right.
And I think it's important, especially with something when you're working with grief, to go into a training with an awareness that you very likely may come out of that training a different person yourself.
Right.
Right. Now, how are you funded these days?
Primarily, we're funded through individual donations.
I guess it's like volunteers. Do you ever have enough money?
No. So we rely on individual volunteers. We do receive a few small grants.
Okay.
And then, of course, we put on a few fundraisers throughout the year. So
And you
lots
have
of generosity is what we depend
Well,
upon.
it's generosity, but really, I mean, I think that people say all the time that Acadian is a generous community, and that is absolutely true. But
That's
also, I think that there's some things that we have in our area that we're very proud of. And I think Healing House is one of those,
Right.
because like you said, it's the only one within 200 miles. I don't know how many programs like this there are nationally. I don't think there were many at all when we started. I still don't think there are a ton of them. To be on the cutting edge and to be able to provide really powerful and meaningful services to kids is a big deal to our community, I
Right.
think. And so
Right.
it does make a difference.
And our community likes to see their money being put at work. So it's one of those things that, because we're so local and we serve so many parishes, I think it's one of those things that people like to see giving to.
Yeah, I think so.
And our families that come, like you said earlier, we have 120 children that come to Healing House right now with the waiting list. The families are not asked to pay for any of our services, so they're all completely free of charge. And we know that 80% of the children that come to Healing House have lost a father. And so
I did
with
not know
that is,
So-
usually the father is the breadwinner of the family.
Yeah.
So a lot of these families are dealing with financial difficulties. So in order to keep our
compound the
services
sadness and
Right.
stress.
right, in order to keep our services free, we do rely on the generosity of the community.
Well, I think it's it's a good way for us to spend our dollars. So anyway, you do have a fundraiser coming up at the end of March.
Yes.
And that is?
It's normally actually in the fall, so a lot of people are aware that Family Adventure Day is our fundraiser. Normally it was in the fall. We had to move it to the spring, and I think we'll be keeping it there. But Family Adventure Day is a day dedicated to spending time with your family. It's encouraging families to get out and enjoy our community. So we're promoting local businesses as well, and they get an adventure map and a passport, and these families are encouraged to go out to as many as they want and kind of experience things you normally wouldn't get to, and make those memories that we can hold on to.
And how is it a fundraiser for you?
It's only $40 for a family of 4 to participate, and we rely on sponsorships
Sounds like a
for the
bargain.
most part to help raise the funds for the program. But there's lots of really exciting activities that the families can do throughout the community.
Okay, I think it sounds like a great event, and we're just about out of time, but I do want to just kind of remind everyone that if they want more information about services or about the fundraiser, they could just give y'all a call?
A call or visit our website.
And find out
Yes.
more about what you're doing over there.
Yes.
Thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
We have been talking to Ms. BROUSSARD and Ms. BROUSSARD, both with the Healing House. I'm Linda Boudreau. You've been watching The Extra Mile.